They say Ikadu was a land blessed by the gods, where the river danced in sunlight and laughter echoed through the trees. But blessings can turn to burdens and joy to silence. All it took was one cry, one bird, to shake the very soul of our village. Long ago, in the heart of a green and peaceful land, there was a village called Ikedu. The village was beautiful, surrounded by tall palm trees and deep forest. The people lived in mud huts and thatched roofs. The sun shone warmly, birds flew across the sky, and rivers sparkled in the background. Women carried baskets on their heads, men carved wood outside their homes, and children ran around playing joyfully in the dust. Life in Ikedu was simple and peaceful. But one day, something happened that changed the story of this village forever. Inside a small dim hut near the center of the village, a woman named Inkem, who was 38 years old, was in labor. She lay on a woven mat, sweating and growing in pain. Her long braids were wrapped in a scarf, and three old women, midwives, stood around her. They were dressed in traditional wrappers with coral beads, helping her bring new life into the world. A pot of hot herbs steamed in the corner, and a small oil lamp flickered, casting soft shadows on the walls covered in carvings. After hours of struggle, Inkem gave birth, but not to one child, she had twins. Everyone in the room froze. One of the midwives, an old woman with grey hair, picked up one of the babies and stared at him in shock. Another midwife looked at the babies with fear in her eyes. The hut went silent. A wooden carving of a fertility goddess stood in the corner, watching quietly as the oil lamp flickered in the thick silence. Just then, Okeke, Inkem's husband, rushed in. He was 42 years old, a tall, strong man with deep brown skin, green hair, and a thick beard. Dressed in a red and gold agbada, he stopped at the door when he saw the babies. His eyes widened, his fist clenched, his face showed fear, not joy. Inkem held her babies close and began to cry. Word spread quickly through the village. The chief's wife had given birth to twins. The people of Ikedu gathered in the village square under the large baobab tree. Men and women whispered to each other in fear and confusion. In their beliefs, twins were seen as a curse, something that could bring sickness or disaster. They had always feared such a birth. At the center of the crowd sat Chief Oladike, a 55-year-old man with dark skin and a thick white beard. He wore a red cap and held a long wooden staff. Beside him stood the village priest, an old bowed man with sunken cheeks. Dressed in a white robe with red patterns, the hair was heavy. Nobody smiled. That evening, a meeting was held inside the chief's hut. The elders, all old men with grey hair and wise eyes, sat in a circle on wooden stools. The hut was full of ancestral marks and carved decorations. Chief Oladike sat quietly, listening. The priest stood in the middle of the room, his face serious. Outside the hut, the villagers waited for the decision. When the sun began to set, the priest came out into the village square. He raised his hands and looked at the crowd. The gods have spoken, he said in a deep voice. Twins bring a curse. One of the children must be taken away or we shall all suffer. The villagers gasped. Some held their children close. The chief sat silently, tapping his staff nervously. The sky was slowly turning orange as the sun disappeared. In front of the crowd, Inkem dropped to her knees, both babies in her arms. Her face was wet with tears and covered in dust. Please, she begged. They are innocent. They are my sons. But no one answered. Okeke stood behind her, looking away. He couldn't even meet her eyes. Then came the hardest moment of her life. An old man from the village, thin and weak, walked forward. He took one of the babies, baby Ekene, and wrapped him in a brown cloth. His hand shook. His eyes were full of pain. Without a word, he turned and began walking towards the forest. Inkem cried out, reaching for her baby, but no one stopped the old man. The villagers only watched in silence. As the sun went down, the old man entered the thick forest. Mist moved around the trees. Owls hooted in distance. He walked deep inside until he came to a big tree with twisted roots. He gently laid the baby down. The baby cried softly. The old man looked at him one last time, then turned away. His sandals crunched the dry leaves as he disappeared into the forest. But Ekene was not alone. From the shadows, a strange and powerful man appeared. He had deep wrinkles, glowing amber eyes, and a long grey beard. He bent down and picked up the crying child. As he did, fireflies lit up around him like magic. The forest had sent a guardian. Years passed. Ekene grew up in the wild. At 14 years old, he was tall, lean, and strong. His skin was dark, and his dreadlocks fell around his face. Tribal marks covered his body, and he wore only a rough loincloth made of bark. He could climb the tallest trees, talk to animals, and survive in the deepest parts of the forest. The old man from the forest raised him like a son. Ekene was smart, fast, and brave. Meanwhile, in Ikedu, the other twins, Chike, grew up in the palace. He had smooth brown skin, short braided hair, and wore fine clothes. He was loved by the villagers. At 14, he walked through the marketplace like a prince. People greeted him with smiles. Women sold yams and fruit. The air smelled like roasted maize, and drum played softly in the background. But something was about to change. One day, dark clouds gathered over the forest. Ekene, now 18, stood on a hill with his staff. His robe blew in the wind. Lightning flashed behind him. Beside him stood his guardian, eyes glowing with mystery. Thunder rumbled across the land. The storm was coming, not just in the sky, but in the hearts of men. Ekene sat before a giant ancient tree. The carvings of the bark glowed. Ghostly figures, spirits of ancestors, floated around him, whispering. He closed his eye and listened. A fire burned before him, and he had heard the call. It was time. Back in the village, sickness had spread. Children coughed. Elders lay weak on mats. The market was empty. Chief Oladike leaned on his staff. The priest walked from house to house, sprinkling sacred water, but nothing worked. A black bird landed on a rooftop. It was a bad sign. In his heart, the priest knelt before an idol. He prayed for hours. Then a voice rose. The cure lies in the hands of the one who was abandoned. The twin in the forest must return. At that moment, Ekena began his journey. Now a grown man, his broad shoulders carried years of pain. His eyes burned with purpose. A necklace of animal teeth hung from his neck. He walked silently through the jungle, fireflies lighting his path. In the palace, Chike looked into a large bowl of water, but instead of seeing his own face, he saw Ekenes, the twin he never knew. He stepped back, shaking. Then one morning, the villagers gathered under the baobab tree. A stranger entered the square, tall, strong, wearing a cloak made of forest leaves. His face so much like Chike's. The people gasped. I am Ekene, he said. You left me in the forest, but I survived, and now I have returned. The crowd was silent. Inkem burst into tears and ran to hug him. My son, she cried. Forgive me. Chike stepped forward. He looked into Ekene's eyes. We are brothers, he said. Ekene raised his staff. His voice was deep and full of pain. You cast me out. You called me a curse. The villagers stepped back. The forest guardian stood behind him, silent but strong. The priest looked nervous. His hand shook. Inkem dropped to her knees. I never wanted to leave you, she sobbed. The crowd said nothing. The wind whispered through the leaves. Chief Oladike, scared and confused, shouted, Guards, protect the village. Warriors in red tunics stepped forward. Ekene's eyes glowed. The sky darkened. The air cracked with power. But just as the warrior moved, Chike stood beside Ekene. Enough, he shouted. His voice echoed through the village. He is my brother. The warrior stopped, the chief's eyes filled with shock. Ekene knelt beside a sick child. He placed his hand on the boy's chest. A soft golden light glowed from his palm. Slowly, the boy opened his eyes. The crowd gasped. One by one, Ekene healed the people. The curse was broken. Chief Oladike removed his red cap. The gods had spoken, he said quietly. He stepped down from his throne. That night, under a full moon, Ekene and Chike stood at the entrance of the village. The people bowed before them. Two brothers, two kings, one village. The wind carried the whispers of the ancestors, and peace returned to Ikedu. The end.